as we bring you the updates here in Chicago. The BS just keep going. We now have bad billionaire budget backstabbing Brandon Johnson. Oh, did I say that wrong? Well, for the sake of this content, we'll keep it that way, calling out another ex-mayor who he asked for help to address the sanctuary city on Capitol Hill. That didn't last long. Let's jump into it by starting with BBBBB and his feedback about ex-mayor Rahm and work our way backwards. Please hit that like button, comment, and share with others.
Several things happened in the first few years Rahm Emanuel was mayor. Teacher Brandon Johnson at the time became a CTU organizer, helped plan out the 2012 teacher strike. Followed 1 year later with Rahm closing 50 CPS schools. With that as the backdrop, this is what the mayor had to say today about the political playbook of Donald Trump.
The playbook that Donald Trump is running is a playbook that Rahm Emanuel executed in this city. We didn't get here because we just happened to have a tyrant in the White House. We got here because someone gave him the script. And the shutting of schools, the firing of black women, privatizing our public education system is why the system is as jacked up as it is today.
Today, a direct shot. In the early days of his term, the two met on the 5th floor of City Hall.
So help you God. I do.
And just last month, Johnson reportedly asked for advice from Emanuel ahead of Johnson's testimony on Capitol Hill. At the start of this year, Emanuel signaled an interest in returning to public office.
I'm not done with public service, and I'm hoping public service is not done with me.
On that topic, Johnson said,
now he is prancing around this country asking people to reconsider him. It is not just frustrating, it is beyond offensive.
Ouch. Sounds like some hating is going on. Could it be because his ego is higher than his approval ratings? Just when Johnson requested for the previous mayors to help him prepare in D.C., and this is how he thanks them. Let's look at Rahm now.
Good evening. Chicago's top cop is out, and there is new pressure on the mayor who fired him to follow him out the door. The political and emotional upheaval growing tonight from the videotaped killing of a teenage suspect allegedly murdered by a Chicago policeman. But more than the tape itself of a 17-year-old being shot 16 times, it is the city's battle to keep that video under wraps and the more than year-long delay in filing charges that has Mayor Rahm Emanuel in full damage control mode. Our Stephanie Gosk has today's new developments.
Chicago Police Superintendent Gary McCarthy is here with us to discuss.
Early this morning, Police Superintendent Gary McCarthy was defending his job.
Who says I'm not accountable? I've been held accountable. You're looking at accountability.
Within hours, he was fired.
He has become an issue rather than dealing with the issue, and a distraction.
Mayor Rahm Emanuel says the public trust in McCarthy eroded less than a week after this video of the 2014 shooting of 17-year-old Laquan McDonald was released. Officer Jason Van Dyke fired the gun and is charged with first-degree.
Let's look at why the city of Chicago was not happy with Rahm.
Emanuel's fiercest critics suggest city officials kept the video from the public for over a year for political reasons, basing their claim on this timeline. On October 20th, 2014, Laquan McDonald was shot 16 times by police and killed. In February of 2015, Mayor Emanuel was forced into a runoff election. This as police shootings and Black Lives Matter were grabbing headlines. On April 7th, Emanuel won a tight race for re-election. 8 days later, the city gave the McDonald family a $5 million settlement. It would take 7 more months for the video to be released and Van Dyke to be charged. Bernard Harcourt, a former University of Chicago law professor, is calling for Emanuel's resignation. Writing in the New York Times, there's been a cover-up in Chicago.
I think that there's serious doubt that Mayor Rahm Emanuel would have won the election if this information had been available to the public.
Emanuel denies playing politics and says the release of the video would have hampered the investigation. Mr. McCarthy had become a distraction. There are a lot of questions in this room about you and your office. Have you become a distraction as well?
Well, you'll make that judgment. I think I'm doing my job, and I try to do it every day and do it in a professional way.
Meanwhile, today, another family is calling for the release of another video.
That gives some insight to the issues with Rahm.
An epidemic of gun violence is just one challenge Chicago's new interim top cop now faces.
Mayor Rahm Emanuel appointing Eddie Johnson today, a longtime veteran of the Chicago PD. Eyewitness News reporter Eric Hong has that story live outside police headquarters tonight. Eric?
Alan and Cheryl, Eddie Johnson didn't even apply for the job. out of support, he says, for former interim superintendent John Escalante, who did apply. But now it's Johnson who's been tapped to lead CPD.
It was a show of unity by an embattled department. New interim superintendent Eddie Johnson surrounded by command staff, including 2 senior colleagues who were passed over for the job.
I have spent my entire career with the Chicago Police Department. I am proud to wear this star, and I am absolutely confident that we can meet this challenge.
The 55-year-old Johnson grew up in Cabrini Green and is a 27-year CPD veteran who's been a beat cop, commander, and most recently chief of patrol. He now leads a department low on morale and credibility that's been unable to quell a recent spike in violence.
He knows our police department. He knows our city. He has deep and abiding ties with community leaders and residents throughout the city.
I would say to these young people out here shooting, they are destroying our communities, they're destroying families, and it has to stop.
Though Johnson is respected within CPD and has the support of minority aldermen, he was not among the 3 finalists chosen by the police board, some questioning whether the mayor has respected the process.
Eddie is a great boss, he's a people person, and he is one that could really do the job. But it's not about Eddie, it's about the process that the mayor has flip-flopped on.
They talk about how important it was for the police department to be transparent, and yet the whole process to select this very important position was not transparent.
Because Johnson was not among the finalists, the police board by law has to reopen the application process and recommend 3 more finalists to the mayor. In a statement, the head of the board did not say when or how that process will play out.
And it keeps coming.
Chicago's top cop is out of a job, and questions are swirling about what led to Eddie Johnson's firing.
Eddie Johnson engaged in conduct that is not only unbecoming, but demonstrated a series of ethical lapses and flawed decision-making that is inconsistent with having the privilege of leading the Chicago Police Department.
The stunning announcement from the city's mayor, Lori Lightfoot, came just weeks before Johnson was set to retire after more than 3 decades on the force. He'd taken over as police superintendent in 2016 in the wake of the controversial Laquan McDonald shooting.
It's Mr. Smollett who committed this hoax.
And he drew national attention for his department's handling of the Jussie Smollett case. Johnson had been under growing scrutiny since mid-October when he was found asleep in his car right after midnight at the
wheel of his department-issued black Chevy Tahoe. The beat officers
Chicago emergency
responding to this 911 call from a passerby.
I think that somebody is asleep in their car. They're parked at the stop sign basically at 34th and Aberdeen. The car is on because I can see the exhaust. I mean, they've been sitting there for at least 5 minutes. It's a black Chevy Tahoe. Sir?
Back to the body cam, showing Johnson with his eyes closed and his head back on the seat initially.
You all right? You good? Got your ID?
It takes Johnson 45 seconds to get his wallet, his CPD ID clearly visible as Johnson looks intently at the officer.
Want to go? You just sitting here or you want to go home? No, I'm good. You good? All right, sir. Have a good night.
1 minute, start to finish. That was all. The officer never offers a field sobriety test, and Johnson drives away.
I ordered the Bureau of Internal Affairs to conduct an internal investigation, just to be transparent.
Johnson initially said it was a medical issue, his top spokesperson issuing a statement that he showed no signs of being impaired. But when the city's inspector general took over the investigation, they found that Johnson had been drinking for several hours at a bar in the Loop with a woman who was his driver at the time. A report filed October 19th, 2 days after the incident, by the Chicago paramedics who came to the scene is labeled high profile and says that when they got to 34th and Aberdeen, Chicago cops told them no patient on the scene. The mayor, who initially had accepted Johnson's version of events in October, fired Johnson early December, weeks before his announced retirement, citing the IG's report, which the mayor said, quote, makes it clear that you engaged in conduct that was unbecoming, thereafter intentionally misled the public about your conduct, and lied to me directly through commission and omission about the same incidents. It was in April that Mayor Lightfoot expressed frustration with City Inspector General Joe Ferguson for not yet having released his report. The Sun-Times reports that Ferguson's report may actually show an alleged cover-up by others in the police department and when they filed a Freedom of Information request with the ask to see the report themselves. The Lightfoot administration denied the request to the Chicago Sun-Times, so we still need to see what Joe Ferguson found in that report.
It's painful to admit this, but when he adjusted my medication, I took the old medication out for high blood pressure, but I failed to put the new medication in.
But the next day, the mayor said his story had changed slightly.
He revealed to me that he'd had a couple of drinks with dinner.
On November 7th, Johnson announced he planned to retire.
This job has taken its toll. Taken a toll on my health, my family, my friends, but my integrity remains intact.
But less than a month later, he's been dismissed after the mayor reviewed the city's inspector general's report and video evidence related to the night he was found in his car.
Eddie Johnson intentionally lied to me several times, even when I challenged him about the narrative that he shared with me. He maintained that he was telling the truth. I now know definitively that he was not.
Mayor Lightfoot would not specify what those alleged lies were, saying revealing them would not be fair to Johnson's wife and children.
NBC News has reached out repeatedly to Eddie Johnson, but we have not heard back. He also declined to comment to media in Chicago. The mayor hinted that the inspector general's report may one day become public, but until then, we might not know.
There is more.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot is facing pushback from Chicago's police unions and the outgoing city watchdog. All that and much more in our Spotlight Politics. Joining us now are Amanda Vinicky, Heather Sharon, and Paris Schutz. So, gang, as we heard earlier, Amanda's been reporting on this. Rahm Emanuel had his hearing before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to become President Biden's ambassador to Japan. Take a look at some of what he said today.
I said then, I'm the mayor, and I'm responsible and accountable for fixing this so this never happens again. And to be honest, there's not a day or a week that has gone by in the last 7 years I haven't thought about this and thought about the what-ifs.
So, Heather, we know that Rahm Emanuel, former congressman, former White House chief of staff, how much lobbying on Capitol Hill do you think he did to get bipartisan support?
Well, it's clear that he was fully prepared to talk about the Laquan McDonald, and he had his papers in a row. He had a letter of support from the City Council's Black Caucus.
City Council Black Caucus? From
Laquan's great uncle, Marvin Hunter. There is no doubt that he is calling in a lot of favors and relying on those relationships. It did not go unnoticed.
Have said that the Democratic brand has become somewhat toxic. Is there some truth to that, and if so, why?
Yeah, I would take the word somewhat out. It's toxic. I don't think you have to caveat or put a disclaimer on it. And I think the way I would see it is there's two words that define the Democratic Party for the public: weak and woke. And neither one of them are favorable. And that's been a process of the Democrats identifying and being weak and seen as weak in a period of time that people want, they always do, but prefer strength. And woke being not just kind of woke on the cultural left set of issues, but focused almost entirely and drowning out everything else you want to say. And so that's why the brand has taken more than just kind of a bruising. It's down in the dumps. Now, the way I describe this, Walter, and the way I look at this is if you're anti-Trump in this moment in time, that's going to get you political points. And Trump's job approval is now down to 42, and no reason that it doesn't continue to slide as the economy slides, and he focuses more on Greenland than on the price of groceries. And I think that the American people, to give us a more than a vote against Trump, but an affirmative vote for the Democrats, we need an agenda built on what I believe is the cost of the American dream has made it unaffordable for the American people. You and I grew up in a time where owning a home, saving for your retirement, saving for your kids' education, and a health care and a holiday, that's the bulwark, the pillars of the American dream. Your kids, my kids, they're going to have access to it. But if only 10% of the children in America have access to the American dream, it's not very American. And it's unaffordable to the American people, and we should be angry about it. The American people want a shot, and they want their children to have a shot at the American dream, and all they have gotten out of Washington is the shaft. And that's the truth, and we have to acknowledge it.
But the party has become perceived, in fact, it's some truth to this perception, as the party of the elites, as opposed to the working class. How do you get talking to regular, ordinary people again?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And, you know, a lot of times, Walter, and you were there, and I'm a disciple coming, my political maturation happens working for the Clinton 92 election. While a lot of people focused on James Carville's, oh, it's the economy, stupid, to have that economy piece heard, you had to have a whole series of issues on what I would call the cultural plane, on crime, on immigration, on drugs, etc. You have to be right with the American people. And you have to be right with their, not just their tolerance, but not let that tolerance become permissiveness.
Now, you are caught up with the Chicago way of doing business in our government. The people elected and selected into these roles have shown who they are. The next mayor election is coming up in 2027, and these last three mayors have identified how Chicago got in this predicament and why change is mandatory to get this city to a better condition and position. Thanks for watching. Let us know your feedback by liking and commenting. Along with that, do share this out so others are aware of the reality to make a change. Check out our other videos and subscribe if you want to be notified when we have more Chicago news and updates.
See more choices by clicking on one of these boxes.